It is a political earthquake that has shattered the predictable rhythm of the 2027 calculations and sent shockwaves from the seat of the Caliphate all the way to the presidential villa in Abuja. Because what happened today, Friday, December 5th, 2025, is not just a casual remark or a slip of the tongue, but a deliberate, high-stakes intervention by the most powerful traditional ruler in northern Nigeria. The headline you saw is trending for a reason, and it is carrying a weight that could crush the assumptions of the ruling party. His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar III, has looked into the eyes of the establishment and publicly defended the one man the government loves to hate, Omoyele Sowore. But he didn't just defend him, he prophesied into his future, calling him President Sowore and warning the authorities to stop muzzling his voice. We are broadcasting this deep dive special report to unpack the seismic shift that occurred at the National Peace Committee meeting in Abuja today. We are looking at why the spiritual leader of Nigerian Muslims, a man known for his conservative stance and careful diplomacy, would suddenly throw his protective cloak over a radical activist like Sowore. We are analyzing the specific words he used, the distinction between president with a small p and capital P, and why political analysts are calling this the soft endorsement that changes the entire complexion of the 2027 race. If you thought the battle for the presidency was strictly between Tinubu, Atiku and Obi, you need to rewrite your list because the Sultan has just added a fourth name, and he did it with the authority of the Caliphate behind him. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we have to look at the setting. The event was titled A Whole of Society Approach to the Prevention of Violence and Conflict in Northern Nigeria, organized by the National Peace Committee. The room was filled with security chiefs, including the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu and other heavyweights of the political class. In such a gathering, you expect the usual speeches about unity and patience. Instead, the Sultan went off script. While delivering his address on the persistent insecurity ravaging the north, remember the Lakurawa terror group we have been discussing, the Sultan turned his attention directly to Omoyele Sowore, the publisher of Sahara Reporters and the convener of #RevolutionNow, who was seated in the audience. He addressed him directly as President Sowore. You could hear a pin drop. He clarified immediately, saying, "When I say president, I mean president with a small p, not capital P. It's only the president that has capital P." But then came the prayer that sounded like a political endorsement. He looked at Sowore and said, "Maybe one day you'll be at this Aso Villa as president." You didn't say amen. He actually invited the activists to claim the prophecy. This is unprecedented. For the Sultan to publicly envision a Sowore presidency, even as a possibility, legitimizes Sowore in the eyes of the northern electorate in a way that 1,000 campaign rallies never could. It signals to the north that this man, despite his radicalism, is not an enemy of the state, but a potential leader in waiting. But the Sultan did not stop at pleasantries. He issued a stern warning to the federal government regarding their treatment of dissenting voices. He said, "Stop muzzling Sowore's voice." He urged the government to bring critics closer rather than pushing them away. He said, "Say Sowore, come close, say your own mind, because the more you allow somebody to bring out what is in chest, the better for you and him. The moment you turn down somebody, I try him, and then you allow him to go haywire." This is a direct critique of the strongman tactics used by the current administration. The Sultan is effectively telling President Tinubu and his security chiefs that their strategy of silencing opposition is backfiring. He warned that the more you tie somebody down, tie his neck, twist him, and he can't talk, you don't know what he wants to say. He's arguing that free speech is a safety valve, and by clamping down on activists like Sowore, the government is creating a pressure cooker that will eventually explode. If you are finding this breakdown of the Sultan's revolutionary intervention insightful, and you want to understand the shifting alliances ahead of 2027, please take a second right now to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We go deeper than the headlines to show you the game behind the game. We have to ask the question, why Sowore and why now? The context of late 2025 is critical here. The north is bleeding. We have reported on the Lakurawa terror group seizing territories in Sokoto and Kebbi. We have reported on the economic hardship that has turned the region into a hotbed of frustration. The northern elite, represented by the Sultan, are realizing that the old alliances with the APC might not be delivering the security and stability they were promised. By reaching out to Sowore, a man who has consistently fought against bad governance regardless of who is in power, the Sultan might be signaling a search for a new kind of leadership, one that is fearless and uncorrupted. It is worth noting that the Sultan mentioned he had met Sowore a couple of times at peace committee meetings during previous elections. This reveals a relationship of mutual respect that has existed beneath the surface. It suggests that while the government sees a troublemaker, the Sultan sees a patriot who is frustrated by the system. This soft endorsement also throws a wrench into the opposition's calculations. We know that there have been talks of a mega coalition involving Atiku, Peter Obi, and Rotimi Amechi under the African Democratic Congress. Sowore has previously ruled out joining these coalitions of geriatrics, preferring to stand alone or build a youth-based movement. But with the Sultan's blessing, Sowore's political weight just tripled. He is no longer just the candidate of the angry youth. He is now a candidate who has been validated by the custodian of tradition. This makes him a dangerous wild card in 2027. If the North decides to protest against the current administration by backing a third force that is not part of the old PDP-APC establishment, Sowore is suddenly a viable option. The Sultan's comments also serve as a shield. By publicly inviting Sowore to feel free to come to me as you're used to, the Sultan has placed the activists under the protection of the Caliphate. It becomes much harder for the DSS or the police to arrest or harass a man who has an open invitation to the Sultan's palace. This immunity allows Sowore to campaign and criticize the government more aggressively as we approach the election year. It empowers him to be the voice of the voiceless that the Sultan described. We must also look at the reaction from the government side. The National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu was present when this was said. It must have been an uncomfortable moment. The Sultan is telling the security apparatus to their faces, "Your method is wrong, let him speak." This is a humiliating rebuke of the security strategy that relies on intimidation. It reinforces the narrative that the government is losing the moral argument. When the Sultan of Sokoto sounds more like a human rights activist than the government, you know the center is struggling to hold. Furthermore, this aligns with the Sultan's recent pattern of speaking truth to power. Just weeks ago, he warned that Nigeria risks descending into chaos due to rising violence. He has moved from quiet diplomacy to open criticism. His joke about turbaning Nnamdi Kanu in Sokoto prison was the first sign of this new bold approach. Now, by endorsing Sowore's right to speak and hinting at his presidency, the Sultan is positioning himself as the father of the nation who is willing to bridge the divide between the North and the South, and between the establishment and the revolutionaries. So, is Omoyele Sowore the next president? That remains to be seen. But today he is no longer an outsider shouting at the gate. He has been invited inside by the gatekeeper. The Sultan's words, "Maybe one day you will be at this Aso Villa as president," will ring in the ears of the political class until 2027. It is a validation that money cannot buy. It is a signal that the North is open to new ideas. And for the Tinubu administration, it is a warning that the loyalty of the traditional institutions can no longer be taken for granted. What do you think? Was the Sultan's statement a genuine endorsement of Sowore for 2027, or was it just a figure of speech? And do you think a radical activist like Sowore can actually win the support of the conservative North? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.